In a packed Florida courtroom, a judge hurls a vicious insult at Pam Bondi, only for her to orchestrate a stunning reversal minutes later, leading to his arrest and a 50-year prison sentence. The air crackled with disbelief as the once mighty figure was led away in chains, his fall a testament to Bondi's unrelenting pursuit of justice. Pam Bondi was no stranger to the crucible of the courtroom. For over 2 decades, she had honed her skills as a prosecutor, taking on drug lords, white-collar crooks, and corrupt officials with a steely resolve that made her a legend in legal circles. By the time she became Florida's Attorney General, her name carried weight, a blend of respect from allies and fear from foes. That morning, as she stepped into the Hillsborough County Courthouse, her blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun and her navy suit crisp against the humid air, she carried a briefcase brimming with evidence. She was prepared for a fight, but not for the venom that awaited her. The judge presiding over the case was Clarence Whitaker, a man whose reputation preceded him like a storm cloud. At 64, with thinning gray hair and a perpetual sneer, he ruled his courtroom with an iron fist and a razor tongue. Known for his erratic decisions and disdain for anyone who challenged him, Whitaker had a history of clashing with prosecutors, but Bondi was a new kind of adversary, one he underestimated at his peril. The gallery buzzed with anticipation as she took her place at the prosecution table, reporters scribbling notes, jurors shifting in their seats, and the defense team whispering among themselves. The case was a bombshell, a sprawling conspiracy involving a network of state contractors accused of rigging bids to siphon millions from public school renovation funds. The ringleader, a slick businessman named Edwin Carver, sat at the defense table in a tailored suit, his dark eyes glinting with confidence. Bondi's team had spent months unraveling the scheme, wire transfers, falsified invoices, and secret meetings captured on tape. She was ready to bury Carver and his cronies. But first she had to get past Whitaker. The bailiff called the room to order and Whitaker swept in, his robe billowing as he climbed to the bench. He didn't acknowledge the crowd, instead flipping through a file with deliberate slowness, letting the silence stretch. It was a tactic Bondi recognized, a power move to assert dominance. Finally, he looked up, his eyes narrowing as they landed on her. "Ms. Bondi," he drawled, his voice dripping with scorn. "I assume you've got something more than your usual grandstanding today, or are we all just here to watch you waste everyone's time again?" The insult stung, sharp and public. A few chuckles rippled from Carver's legal team, led by a smug attorney named Roger Hensley. Reporters exchanged glances, pens flying across their pads. Bondi's pulse quickened, but she kept her composure, her years of courtroom battles having taught her to bury any sign of weakness. "Your Honor," she replied, her tone even, "the evidence will prove a systematic theft of public funds by the defendant and his associates." She gestured to the stack of files beside her, each one a brick in the wall she'd built against Carver. Whitaker leaned back, smirking. "Public funds? That's rich. What's next? You'll tell me the sun's hot?" His sarcasm drew more snickers from the defense. Bondi's jaw tightened, but she pressed on. "With respect, Your Honor, this case involves felony fraud and conspiracy, serious charges backed by hard evidence." Their eyes met briefly, his cold and mocking, hers steady and unyielding. The tension was palpable, a silent duel before the real fight began. But before she could continue, he cut her off. "Spare me the theatrics, Ms. Bondi. Get to it or stop clogging my docket with your nonsense." The gallery murmured, sensing the hostility. Bondi took a slow breath, recalibrating. She'd faced hostile judges before, But Whitaker's venom felt personal, a deliberate attempt to throw her off. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction. She reached for a folder, opening it with a crisp snap. Your Honor, I'd like to present Exhibit A, bank records showing $8 million in unaccounted transfers to shell companies tied to the defendant. Whitaker interrupted again, his voice thick with disdain. Do you always bore us with paperwork, Ms. Bondi, or is this your way of hiding a flimsy case? The jab landed hard, and Hensley grinned openly, whispering to Carver. The jurors shifted, some frowning, others scribbling notes. Bondi didn't flinch. She dealt with men like Whitaker, arrogant, power-drunk, thinking they could intimidate her into submission. She paused, letting the silence reclaim the room, then clapped her hands sharply. Your Honor, if you'd rather make this personal than hear the facts, I can request a recess to address your conduct formally. His lips curled. Was it amusement or irritation? Oh, I'm not worried, Ms. Bondi, he said, his tone mocking. I just see a weak case when it's shoved in my face. Keep going if you insist. Gasps echoed through the room. This wasn't judicial oversight. It was sabotage. Bondi met his gaze head on. Then let's let the evidence speak, she said, her voice cutting through the rising tension. But as she turned to the projector, clicking to display the bank records, she caught a flicker in Whitaker's eyes, not just arrogance, but something deeper, a hint of unease. Her instincts flared. He wasn't just being combative, he had something at stake. She filed the thought away and continued. These records show payments funneled through dummy corporations with no corresponding work on school projects. She pointed to the screen, where numbers glowed in stark clarity. Whitaker waved a hand dismissively. Numbers again? I'm not here for a math lesson, Ms. Bondi. Move it along. His fingers tapped the bench. A nervous habit, perhaps? Her team exchanged glances, sensing the shift. Something was wrong. She flipped to another page. Your Honor, I'd like to submit a motion. Denied, he snapped, cutting her off. She blinked. I haven't even stated it. He leaned forward, elbows on the bench, his sneer widening. I don't need to hear it. This is a circus, and you're the ringmaster. Let's not pretend otherwise. The room buzzed louder, jurors whispering, reporters scribbling faster. Bondi crossed her arms, her voice calm despite the heat in her chest. You're aware this is a public hearing, Your Honor, that every word is being recorded? His jaw clenched, a vein pulsing at his temple. Enough, he barked, his voice rising. Get on with it, or I'll end this farce myself. She didn't budge. Then, with deliberate precision, she reached into her briefcase and pulled out a small recorder, setting it on the table. She pressed play. A gruff voice filled the room, unmistakable despite the static. Keep her quiet. If she's got those contracts, make them disappear. The words hung heavy, silencing the murmurs. Whitaker's hands clenched into fists, his knuckles whitening. Bondi let the silence stretch, let the weight settle over the room. Care to explain who you were talking to, Your Honor? She asked, her voice soft but lethal. His face flushed red. This is outrageous, he roared, slamming the bench. That recording is... Not what? She interjected, unflinching. Not you? It sure sounds like it. The tension spiked, electric and suffocating. She slid a transcript across the table. This legally obtained via wiretap matches the audio? Shall I have it read aloud? The bailiff stepped forward at her nod, his voice steady. She's digging too deep. Bury it before it hits the courtroom. A gasp rippled through the gallery. Bondi folded her hands. I'd like to submit this as evidence, Your Honor. Whitaker's eyes darted to the exit, a fleeting sign of panic. Motion denied, he shouted, his voice cracking. She raised an eyebrow. This isn't a motion. It's justice. She nodded to the back, and footsteps echoed as officers entered, badges gleaming. Judge Clarence Whitaker, one announced. You're under arrest for obstruction, conspiracy, and abuse of power. The room erupted, gasps, camera flashes, Hensley leaping up in protest. Carver's face drained of color, his hands gripping the table. Whitaker sat frozen, his eyes fixed on the bench, as if he could will it all away. "This is a sham," he muttered, his voice hollow. The officers flanked him, cuffs in hand. "You have the right to remain silent." The metal clicked shut, a deafening sound that sealed his fate. 50 years behind bars loomed as the charges stacked against him. Bondi stood tall, adjusting her suit. "No, Your Honor," she said softly. "This is accountability." As they hauled him away, Carver stammered. "Wait, we can settle this." She turned, eyebrow arched. "Settle? Start talking." He slumped, defeated. The courtroom shifted, a fortress of power crumbling. Bondi addressed the room, her voice steady. "I request a full probe into this corruption. This is just the beginning." Justice had spoken, and Pam Bondi had made it roar.